Once again, please remain calm. Right now, our greatest enemy is fear.
They need to believe. Not in me. You can't save them all.
Try.
You'll fail.
See. And then what?
And then what?
Well, if we lose, there is no then what. And if we win, what next? We're still renegades. I don't think there's anybody left on this side of the galactic core we haven't already honked off. Can't go home. Sometimes I don't know which scares me more, winning or losing.
God, I thought I was depressing.
Let it burn, Malaki. Let it all end in fire.
Sheridan goes on the offensive.
The ambassador stays, billions more will die.
But will he survive his own trap? On an all-new
I did the best I could.
Babylon 5.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Grey Council.
And so it begins.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Grey 17 and Babylon 5 podcast, a part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. We're a group of newbies and first ones, either watching the show for the first time or watching the show for the upteenth time. And we have found our way into Season 4's episode, Falling Toward Apotheosis. I'm Scott, and with me is...
Emily.
Justin.
Kevin.
Blake.
Mike.
And Nicole.
Before we get started talking about the episode, we've got a couple things for housekeeping. First and foremost, we have all of our social media links listed down below, so you can join us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Our newbies are mostly on Facebook. We've also got good conversations going on Twitter. And then if you want to talk with the cast in the spoiler section or in the general section, we have our Discord server, which is available to all our Patreon members. The Patreon's listed in the link down below. And a big thank you to our Grey Council members. Those are the producers listed who give the largest amount to the Patreon every single month. We really do appreciate it, and it really does help us grow. To that point, we also had a really good experience last week with actually getting a hold of Mr. Bruce Boxleitner, Captain Sheridan himself. And if you had not checked out either the audio or video of that message, I really recommend you do. It was really heartfelt, and it's a quick one, and we've gotten a lot of good reviews from that. And as Bruce says in the message, he really wanted us to share that with B5 fans. So if you haven't checked it out, do so. But I wanted to open up to the crowd here if you all wanted to talk about Bruce and what he said. Nicole.
By the time I was done watching that for the first time, I was crying. Like, what a wonderful human being. The message that he gave us was so special, and it was so heartfelt and sweet. And I feel like he really kind of was speaking to the newbies a little bit more so, like wanting us to really pay attention to certain things. And I think it really touched him that, like, you were bringing new fans into this world. And I just think I could see he was excited about what we're doing on the podcast, and it was such a just wonderful message that I watched it like 5 times in a row, and I just sat there crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to hug him through the screen. I was like, what a nice dude. And I just think that if you haven't watched it, you should, because it'll really get you in the feels. And what he said was really important, because this cast has lost a lot of people. And I feel like this work and this show and keeping the fandom alive really keeps them alive too. And I just think that's really special. So I'm so grateful that we were able to get that, because it really made an impact on me specifically.
Justin.
Yeah, I mean, how to follow up what Nicole said, man, that was awesome. But hearing from Bruce was definitely a bucket list thing for me, because growing up being a huge fan of Tron and then moving forward and seeing him here in Babylon 5 and then now like hearing what he had to say about Jerry and Andreas and all the people that have been lost along the way, that he has to be one of my new favorite people of all time. And I cannot wait to someday meet him in person because, yeah, that was really heartfelt. It was really emotional. You can tell that he still has a lot of love for the entire experience he had on Babylon 5 and the people involved. And he sincerely loves and misses everyone from that show. And it was absolutely wonderful and brilliant. And honestly, even if I wasn't crying out loud like Nicole was, it's still so emotional and wonderful to see. So I absolutely loved it.
Kevin.
I also grew up a big Tron fan, and my parents really liked the Scarecrow show, so I was pretty familiar with his work. And I've, you hear a lot of stories about people, in Hollywood and read stuff online, but man, I haven't heard anything bad about him, and his goodness just completely shines through. He seems like such a wonderful guy, and I'm really looking forward to possibility of talking to him at some point in the near future, because I can't wait to ask him a couple of things about his projects over the years. He just he's a class act.
And if you're listening, Bruce, call me. We'd still love to get you on the show as well, too. Along with that, we've also been pushing another thing here the past few weeks, and that is our Extra Life donation drive for Children's Miracle Network. Mike, you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah. So I don't want to beat a dead horse here, because one thing I don't care for is begging for money. But if you're going to beg for money, at least do it for a good cause. And I feel like that's what we've been doing. We participated a couple weeks ago in the yearly Extra Life charity event, where we got a few of the crew together and we played some vids and had some fun and streamed it all, and encouraged everybody to donate to the Children's Miracle Network of Hospitals. And it was a big success. I was really, really happy with the outcome. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I should have been prepared. We made it into the $700 range. And the reason we're bringing this up yet again today is I want to shout out just one more time a thank you to our amazing community of listeners out there and amazing B5 fans. You can still donate to the charity through the end of the year, and some of you have. We actually collected kind of out of nowhere, very pleasantly surprised, some additional donations last week that pushed us over the 700 mark. So by all means, if you're able to do it, keep them coming. If not, spread the word. That's all we ask. So thank you all. Thank you again.
Yeah, and the link's down below for that. And, what's really cool about it, too, is we actually got to pick locally where we wanted to send the donations that come into individual members of the team. And I got a message from my local hospital that's in Iowa saying that they raised, along with what we raised, and then with other groups, that one hospital raised about $40,000 through this. So it really does stay local, and it really does help out. So link is down below. Please check it out if you can, or as Mike said, if you can't donate, spread the word, help us out. We'd love to hit our goal of $1,000 before the end of the year. The other thing, too, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is please, 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 leave us a like, a subscribe, a follow, and a review. And it really does help if you can go over to iTunes and Apple, plug your nose, and leave a review over there. We got a new one in this week, guys, and that one comes from Farside Jake, and it's aptly named is the title of the review. Whether you're new to B5 or have seen it many times, it is always better to discuss it with others. This is a good companion series because of the mix of fans and new to both Babylon 5 and sci-fi and general cast members, even if some people seem to not watch the episode. We'll leave that one alone. Farside, you were doing good. They also named their series well because it seems that there is almost always someone missing from the Grey 17 podcast. Well, this week's going to be the same. We're working on it. So thanks, Farside, and also thanks for the 5-star. So we really do appreciate that, too. So if you can, go over to Apple and leave a review. Also, if you're listening on Spotify, we just hit a massive threshold for us on that. We have 500 followers just on Spotify. So thank you all for that. And you can click the little note review button on every single episode and leave us a note on how you feel about the episode or about the show itself. And I do read those as well, too. Let's go ahead and dive in, and I believe Nicole has a synopsis for us.
The Vorlons step up their battle against the Shadows. Lando uncovers a new wrinkle in his plan to unseat Emperor Cartagia. Sheridan asks Garibaldi to remove Kosh from the station, and Delenn gets a surprise from Sheridan.
So for those of you who are just joining us, we're going to go to our newbies first and get their first impressions on the episode, and then we'll talk to our oldbies about that as well. So, Justin, first impressions.
Yeah, I've decided that new Kosh, I'm going to name Koshbag, but I was glad to see Koshbag finally get what was coming to him in this episode. I'm not as sure if it's for good or for bad, but we'll see along the road. This was another brilliant Londo episode. The way he kind of plays Cartagia's delusions against himself to get what he wants out of him. I like how Ivanova's main involvement in the episode is through those war bulletins that pop up throughout there, and the Christ-like status of Sheridan that was kind of alluded to a couple times throughout here might get annoying, but I guess in the sense of the current context of the episode, I guess it kind of makes sense to me. But overall, it was really a heavy episode, a lot of shit going on, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed it.
Emily.
I really enjoyed this episode. So far, season 4 has been going well, which makes me nervous that the bottom's going to fall out and we're going to hit a really shit episode soon. No need to burst that bubble because I know some of you know how soon a bad episode will be.
I've said season 4 is my favorite season. I'll leave it at that.
Just because it's your favorite doesn't mean there isn't a bad one in there somewhere. Yeah, I did like this episode, and I was frustrated with the ending, but what a way to end the episode. It's kind of what I expected in a way that this was how G'Kar lost his eye, was Cartagia being douchey somehow. So it was good.
Thanks for reminding me about that, by the way. When we started this show, I was started collecting the action figures. I know some of us other folks have collected them too. And I joked that my G'Kar, I couldn't show the newbies because he had a spoiler. And the spoiler is that my action figure is missing an eye. So I was like, I can't show you the G'Kar one.
Yeah, I wasn't on that show, but I remember listening to that in my car and going, "Oh my God, she called another one. Jeez."
Nicole, what do you got for first impressions?
Well, Justin and Emily kind of hit on some of the things that I kind of wrote down and noticed. First off, yeah, I thought it was very like when Sheridan was walking through the crowd and they all kind of parted like the Red Sea. I was like, man, that's like very Moses stuff right there. Like, you know, growing up Catholic, I was like, ooh, the parallels there of the Jesus-y type stuff was kind of intense. And then I thought Zach had some good ones in this one. Like when he told Garibaldi, "Are you finished yet?" Like he was just like, let him have his tantrum and kind of had his little sarcastic, like, "Are you finished?" Like I thought Zach had some good ones in this episode. I also really liked how Londo basically played off of Cartagia's narcissism and like his delusions and basically like used it to his advantage to convince him to do what he wanted him to do, which was pretty cool. I feel like Londo's coming back around in a way, or at least I'm starting to not hate him as much. I also thought it was interesting that he called Sheridan to find out what the deal was with the Vorlons. That was kind of cool. And then, yeah, other than that, I feel like we found out whose side Lita was on in this episode. Because, you know, with the whole Vorlons kind of going into her and altering her and stuff like that, I wasn't really sure kind of where she lied. I felt like she was still kind of on their side, but still had to like, maybe they had some control over her. But clearly she can make her own decisions and decided to go against new Dickhead Kosh. And then, yeah, the ending with Dickhead Kosh and all that was wild. I have some questions about it because I feel like I don't understand one thing, but we'll go into that later. And you know, when Sheridan proposed to Delenn, I was very excited. I screeched when he gave her the engagement ring because I'm a shipper and I've been shipping that. So I was a little heartbroken about the news they broke to her, but also when he gave her the ring, I was like, oh my God, it doesn't matter. They're going to be happy. So yeah. The romantic love side came out of me there. So it was a roller coaster episode. I feel like it was a lot of, you know, ups and downs, heavy, but then there was light moments and there was funny moments. And obviously now we know what happens to G'Kar's eye, and it just made me hate Cartagia even more.
Nicole, I love how you have the blinders up in that scene, because immediately after that, you're like, they're going to be happy. And then Sharon's like, well, we could be dead in 2 weeks. So, well,
you know,
it doesn't matter.
But still, in the moments they have together, they're going to be happy. And they know their love is said out loud and intent. And whatever happens, they know that they're a unit. So that's what I mean by that.
No, I hear you. This is the second time we've watched Delenn get engaged, right, Emily?
Yeah.
She's not going to say a word. She's just going to give me a dirty look.
like, even though I know what happened since then, that was still implied, and it's even creepier now. I'm actually more disturbed by it now than I was when I first saw it.
Polygamy is alive and well in the Babylon 5 universe.
Dylan never actually said yes, just throwing it out there.
I mean, a ring is better than a tomato, so I'll take the ring.
I mean, who knows what the Minbari version of marriage looks like?
Could be a praying mantis, right? Okay, let's go to our people who have watched the show all the way through before. Mike, first impressions.
I actually think this might be one of my more favorite episodes. I really like the overall heaviness of this episode, the constant war broadcasts, the impending sense of doom coming from all sorts of directions. The everything with Cartagia. It's a really solid episode in my mind, and like I said, the atmosphere of it is really good, and there's that little bright spot at the end with Delenn and Sheridan to kind of counterbalance everything else that has come in. Really like it. I do think they should just call this episode "The Gang Kills Vorlon." You're an Always Sunny fan, but yeah. So there you go. It's a good one.
I was thinking more Doctor Who with "Let's Kill Hitler." Let's kill Kosh. Kevin, first impressions.
I like this one. There's a couple of funny moments in this one that, tries to counterbalance some of the heaviness that has been already talked about by the crew. But one of the things that I found hilarious was the Lando's calling, probably collect. But this one, it has a lot in it. It's very heavy. There's some ethical concerns in this one. Everyone seems to be flying around with different ways of referring to Kosh 2.0, but they called him on the set Kosh Vader, so I thought everyone will get a kick out of that one.
Blake.
So I'm kind of like you, Scott. This is probably my favorite overall season, and it's because of how much it runs together. And so I really like this episode, and this is the part for me where it's getting hard to stay week to week and not, run a few episodes ahead, because I just want to keep letting it skip and go forward. But this one, you finally have that showdown with Asshole Kosh and Kosh 1.0, where you find out that whole thing about Sheridan carrying part of Kosh and that kind of taking out new Kosh, and then you see the fleet amassed at the end. So something's coming. So I really do like this episode, and finding it hard not to want to start skipping ahead again.
No, I completely agree. And this is what Babylon 5 truly should be known for more than what it is. And that is, this didn't happen in the 90s. Primetime drama television was not serialized. I mean, we talk about Star Trek a lot, but TNG and right now DS9's in season 3 at this point, or season 4, mostly aren't serialized either, because it's just not what you did. People were concerned that if somebody missed a week, then they would be lost to the show. But we're doing this now. We are literally moving week to week. The story just continues, and it's fun as hell to see that happen. And we've talked about this a little bit already too, with every episode so far this season has had an intro, and we've done like the captain's log and the medical doctor's log, and now we've got Ivanova on TV giving us a little bit of update of what's going on. So I like how JMS is doing like the whole previously on without really doing it. So that's helpful as well too. But yeah, no, I like this episode a lot as well. It's a culmination of a lot of things, and the title is Falling Towards Apotheosis, and that's the idea, is we're coming to a climax. We are moving to something bigger. So you can feel that. You can feel the tension rising throughout this episode. And to Emily and to Blake's point, you don't get a climax in this episode, but it's coming. It's coming soon. Let's go ahead and dive into the episode proper, and Emily's hand immediately shot up. So Emily, go for it.
Well, at the risk of pissing off a lot of people.
You never do that, ever.
Which happens so rarely for me, but I'm going to take a big risk with this one. When we actually see the giant Vorlon ship kind of more up close, all I could think of is it looks like the Enterprise being attacked by a Kraken.
Okay.
It looked like there were tentacles coming out, and it had like the saucer shape to it. And I was just like, oh, that's an interesting ship.
Emily, what you think is going to piss off fans and what actually pisses off fans are two different things, but I'm sure you'll find a way to piss them off again soon.
Because I'm bringing it up Star Trek again, and we know that.
Well, the one guy still thinks you should just stay in the kitchen, so we're fine.
I mean, the kitchen does have snacks.
Nicole, what do you got?
I just kind of wanted to start off by bringing up something that was a point throughout the whole episode, but not one of the like major points, I don't think, was the whole Garibaldi situation. Now, I love Garibaldi. He's one of my favorite characters, but he's kind of being a dick. Like there's something going on with him. I don't know if he was altered and he doesn't know, but he's so angry. Like when Ivanova said, is he more cranky than usual? And Zach's like, oh, give him a break. He's been through it. I feel like Zach is kind of trying to be the buffer and like, like be understanding, but like also he went off on Zach too. Like, and Zach was just there to like give him a message that he wanted, like to go back to work, and before Zach could even get it out, he went off on him, so I think that there is something boiling in him and there is going to be a conflict with Garibaldi. And I don't know if it's going to be with Sheridan or Lorianne, but something is coming and I don't think it's going to be good. And it really makes me sad and upset because I love Garibaldi and I don't want him to be a dick weasel, but he's acting like one. And I feel like it's going to be bad.
So I've been dragging this out for several weeks trying to get like the infighting to continue, but we actually did get an answer, by the way, to the question, did Garibaldi get captured or did he go off on his own?
Yep.
And Nicole,
I was wrong.
I'm sorry to tell you.
I know.
That's a strike. Justin's over here doing the happy dance.
I know. I even said to Justin, you were right. I was wrong when I saw it. I was like, God damn it, I was wrong.
It was wonderful to be right.
Justin, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of piggybacking off of what Nicole said, like it's, even Sheridan made the point, and he doesn't have a bad point in this. It's Sheridan comes back from the dead and everybody rejoices. He comes back and he's like pilfered with questions and everybody's questioning him and he's not ready to come back to work and he's being isolated. And I get his frustration in that. Like, why does Sheridan get to come back to thunderous applause, but then I come back and people treat me as if they don't trust me anymore and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's a shitty situation for Garibaldi to be in, but I can't necessarily blame him. And, Garibaldi's not always necessarily a trusting individual. So the fact that somebody new just shows up in the War Council and nobody will tell him who this person is or what he's about and just expect him to like trust him, I don't blame Garibaldi at all for being suspicious for what Lorianne is or what he's about or who what his ultimate objectives are, because Garibaldi is the kind of person where he has A, B, C, D down to the truth, and he can't get this with this person. So he's naturally not going to trust him. Sheridan comes back and everyone cheers, and Garibaldi comes back and he gets a proctal exam, or at least almost got a proctal exam. Exactly. Yeah. I understand his frustrations. It's real.
Although we did hear that Sheridan ordered himself a proctal exam.
That's true. Yeah. He got a full workup. Yeah. We didn't see him get his head examined, but yeah. Yeah. Mike, what do you got?
Well, Justin stole most of my point here, but I was going to say, I was going to jump in and defend Garibaldi here because while he is being a little bit more abrasive than usual, I actually think he 100% has a point that no one seems to be suspicious of Lorianne walking around. Like Sheridan comes back from the Doom planet populated by shadows that nobody knows what the hell they even look like, and then all of a sudden Sheridan shows up with a new best friend that looks like Stephen Merchant fuck the shoehorn crab, and like not one person raises a suspicion about the fact that he's like calling the shots in Sheridan's ear now. And
go one step further than that. Then as soon as he does get let in, he's like, hey, Sheridan's like, hey Garibaldi, I want you to go get your ass kicked by a Vorlon, and I want you to get your ass kicked.
Yeah, but I mean, at least at the point when they reached that discussion, Garibaldi was like, "All right, I get it." like I don't know. All in all, I mean, I feel like in this episode, at least, Garibaldi was completely rational in just about everything that he said and did, and and then in the end, he went along with it like a team player. So,
Emily,
yeah, I have to agree with them, and I was also frustrated by that for Garibaldi because Sheridan does come back, and I understand their hierarchy with on B5 is very different, but everyone's been so worried about the shadows and no one comes back alive, and they know they can like alter them somehow and mess with their mind. And he comes back with a little tag along, and people are just like, yeah, he's back. And it seems like no one had a critical thinking skill about, should we be trusting him right now? Like their default is just to trust. And yeah, it seems like they're really running Garibaldi through the ringer trying to figure out if he's still trustworthy. Whereas Sheridan, it was just like, oh yeah, it's fine. We don't know who this guy is. We don't know anything about him. But he came back from Zahadum with Sheridan. Like, that is totally suspicious. Why is no one else feeling the same about that? They're all just like, yeah, it's cool. It's fine. He's going to do whatever he's going to do and keep his little secrets. And we don't need to know anything, but we'll follow along.
Nicole.
I just, two things that I wanted to kind of add and say on the record. I didn't say that I think his activities and behaviors are unjustified. I just noticed he was being more aggressive. Like I get why he is, but I hate that he's in that position and he is being that way because I just love him so much. And I'll go on record and say, I still don't know if I trust Lorian. Like I don't. There is something about him that I do not like. Yeah, he might be a first one. And yeah, he might have given his energy to Sheridan to live. But that motherfucker's shady. I'm sorry. There is something about him that pisses me off. And I don't know what it is. So I'll just put it out there. I could be wrong and eat my words and have Justin do a happy dance again. But that's just how I feel.
Shady count going up.
Emily.
I was also wondering about that energy transfer thing. Is it just energy or is it energy and a little something else so he can manipulate him?
He gives Sheridan a little something, something.
You know what I mean? Like, is it just a little bit more than energy so they can manipulate a situation? Because I don't trust any of them at this point. I don't trust Shadows. I don't trust Vorlon. I don't trust Lorian. None of them.
You trust Ivanova, though, right?
Yeah.
You have to trust Ivanova. Mm-hmm. I do like, though, I mean, we came into this episode from last episode thinking, okay, Garibaldi obviously has been tampered with. He's now a bad guy. But this episode is doing a lot to what you guys have said to show he's making sense. He's not tracking Sheridan. He's tracking Lorian, and he's pointing out everything you've all pointed out. And yes, we do have a flashback to, him being wrapped in cellophane, but it could very well be PTSD. We don't know. But at the same time, to Garibaldi's point, none of us were thinking that Sheridan is a sleeper agent at all.
Okay,
but he's okay. Well, you did, Emily, but you're a special case, my friend. None of the normies thought Sheridan had anything to worry about. But again, he's going about being kind of weird too. So Garibaldi has a point in my book.
And
Emily has never trusted anybody in this.
She's a
show.
Special case. She's a special case in many ways.
She hates everyone equally.
More or less, yeah.
She hates other people more equally than others. Nicole.
So since we were talking about like that energy transfer thing, I kind of wanted to bring up the whole Lorian made a point to say that Kosh was in Sheridan as well as a little bit of him. So how many fucking people are in Sheridan? Like, what is happening there? Like,
Is it the train over?
No, we are not. No trains.
No
trains.
I wasn't here last week.
I wasn't either. So
how many people are in him, and how many of them will pull out too fast?
Yes.
Well, it was too hard, not too fast.
But
before you leave us and never come back, leave a review, 5-star, and then you can leave. Go ahead.
5 stars for the filth.
Right. Well, and the thing that I thought was kind of interesting about the whole thing. So, and maybe I'm just a dumbass, but like at the very end first of all, Dickhead Kosh was pissed that Kosh was in a human. Like he was mad. So I'm wondering if that's like, oh, that's a no-no for the Vorlons to like infiltrate a human or whatever, or trust a human. But Kosh and Sheridan, I feel like had a really good relationship and like a trusting one, but when I was at the very end, when they were like trying to kill new Kosh and he came out of the encounter suit, and then when he pulled Kosh out of Sheridan and they were kind of like twisting up in the rafters and like went to the ship or whatever. Was he dead, or was that like his spirit being taken. Like, I was so confused. I didn't know if they actually succeeded in killing him or they just got him off B5, you know?
JMS was asked.
That's going to get a comment.
Oh, no.
I bet it'll get a response from him.
According to him, he does still listen to us because he sent ninjas after us during the train comments. So, hi, JMS. How are you? No. JMS was asked this question on the Usenets back in the day, so I feel like I can say this without much worry. We saw the death of both Koshs.
Okay. Because I just was like, I watched it like 3 times in a row and I was like, am I just dumb or am I just not understanding what's happening here?
Yeah.
You know? But from what I interpreted was that was their spirits. And he before he's like, nah, man, before I go, I'm taking old Kosh with me, and then took him and went off to wherever, you know? So that's kind of what I interpreted, but I don't know if I was right or not.
Flip side of that was Kosh, our Kosh, sacrificing himself to save
Sheridan.
Babylon 5.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He gave the last. Remember, Kosh told us right before he died, he's scared of death. He's scared because he's lived so long, he doesn't want to die. So he grabbed onto Sheridan for dear life and held on.
Got it.
But at this last moment, Kosh decided to sacrifice himself because no one else could kill old Kosh except for him. So
he didn't pull old Kosh out of him. Old Kosh went after him, essentially.
No, because that was the plan. That was the plan the entire time.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Lorien says now.
Okay.
And that's when Kosh
and that's
leaves.
okay. That's what I figured. Okay, cool. So I did understand it. Yay, I'm not stupid.
Yeah, that was our Kosh dying for our sins.
Okay, perfect. He was our Jesus. He was our space Jesus today.
We have 2 Jesuses in this episode.
Yeah,
a Jesus. Justin.
Well, and the way I kind of always interpret it, like watching that scene, is you see the 2 different dichotomies between like what Kosh and Koshbag were, you know, because Koshbag was in the camp of let's just wipe out and destroy anything that has been touched by the shadows. But then Kosh was on the side of like not humanity per se, but like on the side of let's try and make everybody kind of work together, like the original, I guess, vision of the Vorlons of trying to promote growth and stuff like that from the younger races. But then so finally you have Koshbag and OG Kosh kind of fight it out, and it was actually a wonderful scene. Like, not wonderful scene, but it was actually a very interesting scene to watch.
Kevin,
what I find interesting about this whole thing, I was already kind of talking about. I'm like, what are the ethical considerations with them? Having Lita lead, him into the slaughter, or what they were hoping was going to be the slaughter, and then trapping him and hoping to lead to his death. It's interesting to me because, especially having read that Patricia Tallman was talking to JMS for a couple weeks, I guess, after she read the script, that she didn't like the idea of Lita leading him in like that, and the crew leading to his death. And I'm curious as to how you all feel about that, because I don't have a huge problem with it given what they were doing, and clearly JMS's thought process has been and continues to be, it's war and these kinds of decisions happen. But I'd be interested to hear what the crew thinks.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Kevin, because so when Garibaldi and the crew run out of Kosh's room, and was that Lita waiting in the wings to kind of go in and be like, oh, I'm here to warn you or whatever? Because I noticed there was somebody waiting with the mask on. So when they left, they went, that was Lita, right? To go in there and like, okay. So I feel like with Lita, I don't see a problem with this because New Kosh has been kind of an asshole to her. Like, he's been kind of like she said, like basically took away all her furniture, like kind of hurting her, kind of using her, and just treating her like she was just some sort of vessel to use and abuse, and like she mattered at all. And she even confronted him about it, and he's like, basically, fuck you, whatever. You know what I mean? So I kind of feel like in a way it kind of set Lita free a little bit too, because she doesn't have to deal with him doing whatever the hell he was doing to her when she had the gills. He wouldn't tell her things, and, he was just not treating her nicely. And so I don't really feel like it was a bad thing. And like you said, it's kind of all fairs in war, love and war, like this is a time where you got to be creative, and the Vorlons are literally killing millions and millions of people and planets. So it's like, if this is going to help stop that, sometimes you just got to lead the lamb to slaughter. You know what I mean? So I thought about that too. And I was like, is it good that it was Lita? But I feel like in a way it was kind of like almost like Lita getting a little bit of vindication. I know that Patricia Tallman didn't like it, but like symbolically, I feel like it was a big fuck you from Lita, if that makes sense.
Emily?
I think I struggled with Lita being the one to essentially lure him out, because he can sense differences in her. He can tell she's trying to hide something, but I don't know that he would have followed anybody else. So I don't think there was a different option. It just put her in a really difficult spot, because she has to try to hide from him, like this first one that has more power than her, what the plan is, and that she's angry and pissed because he's a fucking douchebag. And that's a lot to try to restrain while implementing the plan and trying to act convincing. And I actually think she did a good job of acting all of that.
My take on this is, I don't know how Patricia Tallman would feel about this all these years later, but it seemed like she kind of came around to JMS's final argument about, well, it's where these kinds of things happen. But I mean, he had clearly mistreated her, hurt her, and he had a hand in picking which planets were going to be annihilated. All of those things together, especially, make it, yes, it's an ethical conundrum, but I'm not sure it really is when you think of the totality of the situation.
The one thing I wanted to ask you all too is, what do you think of seeing what we now can assume is a true Vorlon? They ain't angels.
It was a clear distinction between Old Kosh and New Kosh, kind of who was bad and who was evil or good, because Old Kosh had that bright yellow, sunny, kind of vapory look. And then Dickhead Kosh was like cold and, like you could just, it was very symbolic to me of who was good and who wasn't. And obviously Arkosh was the good one. But I think that, that seeing the true Vorlon state, and I don't know if the colors symbolize anything, but I definitely could tell who was good and who wasn't.
Emily?
I thought Evil Kosh kind of looked like a Vorlon Shadow hybrid.
Yes.
Because like the Shadows obviously have multiple legs, and at least original Kosh had like some weird long form, and then Evil Kosh is like segmented with multiple limbs, so he looks like he's somewhere in between, which was really making me wonder if there's different factions of Vorlon, and do they all actually support the current tactics being used? I'm throwing my question in there right now.
I'm about ready to say, I was really excited because I see the Vorlons and the Shadows looking a lot alike. One's energy, one's not. But I mean, they look a lot alike when you actually see a true Vorlon. And then you went off on your little conspiracy road, and I was like, okay, cool.
Okay, but how many groups have 100% agreement about anything? That just...
Well, we know for a fact the Vorlons don't, because Kosh went off the reservation.
Well, maybe Evil Kosh has a little shadow in his lineage, and that's an issue.
Interspecies erotica. Got it. Okay. Nicole, what do you got?
I'm actually going to go with Emily on this one and say, I wonder if maybe the Shadows and the Vorlons branched off from each other. Like maybe they were one and then they went different, kind of like how the Minbari have the religious and the warrior case and whatever. Maybe I'm wondering if like the Shadows and the Vorlon were, the first ones were all one, right? And then they all kind of branched off into their own. So they went to the Vorlons and the Shadows and Lorien, whatever the fuck he is, and like maybe they all have a little bit of each other in them. And maybe that's why New Kosh kind of looked like a shadow hybrid. And maybe that's why he's a dick.
That's why he's a dick. A little correction. Lorien isn't a first one. He is the first one.
Yeah. Okay,
now that's what he's told us. Emily's probably going to say exactly. I knew you were going to say it, but yeah. So according to Lorien, if he is telling us the truth, he is the first being to gain sentience in the universe. Everything else comes later.
Gotcha. So it's all his fault that everything's a shit show. Got it.
They're all his bastard stepkids. Got it.
He's the reason we pay taxes.
Which we got into this conversation, and Justin got into it a lot a few episodes ago. JMS is very big into mythology, and there is a whole thing about the first beings in Greek and Roman mythology were immortal, and then they were not. And so you get a little bit of that in there too. Anything else on B5, Kosh, all of that stuff before we take a jaunt over to Centauri Prime? Let's start talking about Centauri Prime and Londo and the Emperor.
Only if we can call collect.
That line was great.
I had to explain to my daughter a few months ago what collect calling was.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, these children these days. Nicole, what do you got?
The whole thing on Centauri Prime, Cartagia is a fucking psycho. Like, seriously, first of all, I really think Londo is playing it in a way that is like very smart and intelligent and very manipulative. And this is another example of his like manipulative side coming out, but it's kind of coming out for good because Cartagia sucks. He's playing off of all of the things that Cartagia's, his grand illusions and his narcissism. Like he's really playing that fiddle and kind of getting Cartagia to go along with his plans. A couple things that I thought were crazy was, if you're a Centauri, the one thing you want to do is preserve and protect your people in your home world. And Cartagia is like, let it burn, whatever. Like he is totally not kind of following the path, I guess, which I thought was crazy, or at least that's what I observed. And then the whole, I like you, Londo, and taking him in the room and showing him the heads with Londo like covering his mouth or whatever. Like that whole scene was insane. Like the whole Centauri Prime vibe on this episode was just, it was a lot, you know? And then at the end, when he does that to Jakar, I cannot wait for him to get got. That's all I got to say.
Did you happen to recognize the one head that we did see on the table fully? Did you recognize that head?
I was trying to figure out who it was. And he said the name too. And I'm like, why do I know this person?
Don't worry about the name. Just think about the head. Did
Was it
anyone recognize
Rifa?
it? No, it wasn't Rifa. It was Andreas Katsoulis.
Oh.
And Peter actually made a comment that even then he's getting his scene stolen by Andrea.
Oh my god. That was his real face? That was his real face?
Well, with a lot of necro makeup, but yes.
Oh, no shit. Okay. No, I didn't catch that.
Yep. Emily.
Was anyone else baffled by how he could walk in the office with that stench and not flinch? Because you could see Londo sitting there like trying not to vomit, because I'm assuming there's a smell because you have rotting heads. And Cartagia is just like, this is completely normal because Captain Crazy Pants. Yeah, I man, that scene was rough because I wanted to gag just contemplating how bad it would have smelled. And he's just acting like it's nothing.
Justin.
Well, I mean, not to mention the fact that Cartagia is willing to destroy the entire Centauri homeworld and all of its people just to elevate himself to godhood. Like, oh my God, the douchebaggery within this entire episode in terms of Cartagia. Like, I think I said this last episode too. I've never wanted to see a character killed more than I want to see Cartagia just get completely bumfucked out of this universe, like gone. I'm done with him. Like every time I see him on screen, and I really wish we can track down the actor because I would actually like to talk to him about, you know, his method of playing this character, because I've never hated a character more than I hate Cartagia. It's insane. Like every time he's on screen, it makes my skin crawl.
Nicole.
I agree with that. He does make my skin crawl too, but it props to that actor for making everyone hate him, man. Like,
right?
Damn.
Yeah.
But you said something, one of you guys said something funny about the whole heads in the office thing. Wasn't it, am I mistaken, or wasn't Cartagia saying that one specific head gave him a great idea and was like talking to him?
They talked to him.
Yes. Okay.
It was actually, it was two heads.
Andreas. Yeah.
Well, it was two heads. He pointed at the one on the far left that we didn't see. He's like, this one said this. And then he pointed at Andreas's head and said, and this one said this. He's talking to all of them.
And they're talking back to him apparently. Like, what? Like that. I just kind of watched that scene and I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, it made my brain hurt. Oh, there was no Veer in this episode either, which made me sad.
Yeah, I was wondering where he was. I was a little disappointed that he wasn't there, but I'm glad he didn't have to be subjected to the decapitated heads just hanging out on desk.
I don't think he would have been able to play that very cool.
Oh, no. He would have laughed or, no.
Well, and part of that, too, is I'm sure, like, Stephen First just wasn't, part of the script for one reason or another. But when you look at it, every time we see Londo and Cartagia, they're in situations that Veer would not be in. Cartagia is letting Londo into his inner sanctum. Londo randomly runs into him in the garden because he was called out there by Cartagia. So it's one of those where Veer just doesn't fit because Cartagia doesn't give a shit about Veer. Veer is nothing to him.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm starting to wonder how aware Cartagia is of like things going on around him. Because I mean, he's obviously completely off the rocker. Like they're not even in the same room. But he has to know that Londo plotted to have Rifa off. So
Does he?
I would think he would know that one.
Does anyone know that? It was Jakar who killed him. And the only people who were in the room when Rifa got taken out were people that Londo bought off or Narn. So does he?
Someone somewhere might have put 1 and 2 together.
I'm with Emily on this one. I would think that somebody knew, that Cartagia at least suspected.
Yeah, if they don't have evidence, I mean, you would at least suspect, because I would guess Morden might hint at it somehow.
It's probably what endears Londo to Cartagia so much.
And I just wonder if some of Cartagia's behaviors and bringing him in to like the office with the heads is also a subtle threat. Like, this could be you. You could be joining my cabinet of heads,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can see where you read it that way. I don't see it that way. I think we've gotten past threats with Cartagia and Londo. I think Cartagia just believes that in 7 days, when the Vorlons arrive, I'm going to become a god. And I like Londo, so I'm going to tell him about it.
It's interesting to me that, because I feel like, even though I've seen the series all the way through, I'm pretty sure I thought of the whole, hey, just tell him that there's not going to be anyone to worship him if the entire planet gets offed, and that's going to be your way out in some way somehow. Mm-hmm. But man, like the amount of crazy, man, I thought the Brits were crazy having a shadow cabinet, but that just absolutely takes the cake.
Well, and I mean, Londo plays that well too, because Cartagia calls him on it. So you want to stay with me so you can honor me? No, I'm good. Because he knows that he'll lose his trust of Cartagia. He's like, yeah, let me go so I can preach about you and be your apostle. No, I'm ready to die for you, sir. I'm ready.
Cartagia wants to be in the room where it happened. The room where it happened. The room where
decapitated heads.
Okay, did anyone catch where Londo and Cartagia is talking and Londo's like, yes, it will be the death of Citizen Jakar. And I was like, he's probably not going to pick up on the code that once this happens, Jakar won't be just a citizen anymore. He's likely going to be reinstated with some form of power on Narn. Or did I just read too much into that statement?
I don't think so. I don't think you read too much into that at all, because especially if it's the case where if Jakar is expecting Londo to follow through on his word and to free, Narn from Centauri rule, then I would almost expect like Jakar to be elevated to some kind of role of supreme leadership of trying to rebuild the Narn homeworld. So I don't think you're wrong in your thinking at all.
I think he means it as as an insult, citizen Jakar, because he's nothing else. And I'm not sure that he really means it in the sense that he intends to insult Jakar, but I think he's doing that for the Emperor's benefit.
So it's more of like calling him Citizen Jakar is more of like saying you have no role, you have no
right. It's part of the cover with the Emperor. You
have no standing, therefore you're just a citizen. Okay. Interesting.
I just want to know how Emily deals with all these rabbit holes around her house. They're easy to fall into.
I hop around them. It's fine.
Anything else you guys want to talk about before we move into questions and predictions?
I figured out why I was having an issue with Sheridan.
Oh,
just in case anyone's actually curious as to what my issue is, that's basically pretty much just a me issue, which is not surprising. It's actually his voice. And really? I figured it out listening to his cameo because his voice sounds so genuinely kind and sincere. It's been difficult for me to take any of the scenes where he's angry, like, completely seriously. I don't hear the anger in his voice that I would expect for the scene because I think that's just how his voice is. But this time, like, his voice sounded a little bit different. Like, there was almost a little hint of anger in there. I'm like, oh, that's a different change. I'm like, that's what my problem's been for, 2 seasons.
I will say when
Bruce... He sounds too nice.
I will say when Bruce joined the show, that was one of the complaints, was that he was too happy-go-lucky and too smiley and was worried about oranges more than anything else. And so you're not the first fan to complain about that. Now, I don't know about season 3 and 4, if they're still complaining about it like you, but, what are you going to do?
Yeah, but I can be really sensitive to, like, the tone in someone's voice. So it's likely mostly a me thing for season 3.
So there's a really fun story about the whole Kosh, the 2 fights. So the first Kosh fight with security in Kosh's quarters is, regular effects. There's actually somebody in the suit who's, moving around, doing the whole thing. And then the second fight in Cargo Bay or whatever it was, there's nobody in the suit, and there's a whole story behind it. So I'll do it real brief. So they had the pyrotechnics guys make up 3 Kosh heads that were all going to explode. And they're like, okay, we got to get this in, one of the shots, in 3 shots, we got to get it. So they clear the set. And so it's just the director, John Flynn III, and 2 cameramen. One of the cameramen was his son, John Flynn IV. And so one of the pyrotechnics guys, the plan was that only those 3 are going to be there. They were going to set up the cameras, and then they were all going to leave. And that's when they would set off the head. Except one of the pyrotechnics people accidentally set off the head early and nearly injured or possibly killed all 3 of them, to the point where John Flynn, the director, flew out of his chair. So they were all pretty shaken, and they're all trying to figure out, okay, well, now are we going to be able to get this in 2 takes after everyone settles down? Thankfully, no one was injured. And so they put the Kosh head, the second Kosh head on, and they're ready to go, and it falls off and is shattered. So now they only have 1 Kosh head left, and Copeland, the producer's like, okay, why are you guys still working on this? Let's just do it in post-production, which is why they did it. So if you go back and look at those 2 scenes, the second fight wasn't really what they were hoping for, because they were planning on doing it with regular effects, but they had to settle for the post-production CGI type stuff.
The pyro guy's thinking, I'm going to need a new job now.
Yeah. Apparently, John Flynn III was pretty shaken up a bit there, and he nearly lost his shit and nearly had a heart attack because he was so upset.
Well, if somebody's gonna nearly blow me up, I'm probably gonna be pretty pissed too.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and move into questions and predictions. For those who have joined us for the first time, we have our newbies who have not watched past this episode. So we're going to ask them if they have any lingering questions, and then we're going to have them make any predictions about what's going to happen next. And then we'll kick them out the airlock, and our first ones who have watched the whole show will answer those questions in our Beyond the Rim segment. So let's go to Nicole first. Questions and predictions.
Kind of got some of my questions answered, like, did Kosh die, which, you guys, we kind of talked about. So I guess my only other questions are, now that they got Kosh off B5 and kind of got rid of him, is the Vorlon massacre going to continue, or was he the one that was driving that? Like, was that all him?
I'll answer that for you right now. The Vorlon fleet is steaming towards Centauri Prime.
Okay.
We were told that at the end of the episode that they were 7 days away.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So So it doesn't matter if Kosh is there or not. And then I guess really my only other thoughts or predictions would be, I think something's going to go down with Garibaldi. I don't know what, but I think that this tension is going to come to a head and it's going to be ugly. And I am very curious as to if they are going to make it past 2 weeks, like Sheridan said. So I think they are, obviously, because the show goes on for another season. So I don't think anything totally drastic is going to happen, but obviously shit's going to go down. So that's my thoughts.
Emily.
I guess I have one prediction. I have a feeling that Garibaldi's going to start kind of subtly investigating or looking into Lorian, whatever information he can gather about this new person showing up and being right next to Sheridan, seemingly very frequently. As far as questions, there are a few. I covered if there are Vorlon factions and how many of them actually agree about the current tactics being used against other colonies that are being used by the Shadows. Not necessarily that they're working with the Shadows, but the Shadows are using them. So when Garibaldi was wrapped to the table, when he woke up on the pod, that's his flashback. That's what we saw in a previous episode. But is that how he was found? When they get the pod and get into it, is he still wrapped to the table, or is he not, and they found him in a different state? I just want to know how Garibaldi was situated within the pod when they rescued him, because I feel like that'll affect how that might be affecting why they're treating him the way they are and being so suspicious. If he was on the exam table wrapped to it.
Now he was sitting up at the table, spread eagle, saying, "What took you so long?"
He's ready for some popcorn and some of his favorite things.
I'm trying to remember, and I thought maybe someone else would jump in. Don't they show them wheeling him across the dock or something?
He was on a gurney. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't think he was wrapped in saran wrap at the time, but he was on a
remember
gurney.
if he still was or not. Okay.
I think he was, yeah.
And I still want to know how many Vorlon there are, because we are led to believe there weren't very many left based on what Delin said when they revealed Kosh was one of the first ones.
And Justin, questions, predictions.
Okay. With Cartagia, making his grand trip to Narn, I honestly think this is where Cartagia is going to die and someone else is going to have to become emperor. So whether it's, if this is where we see Londo become emperor, I don't know, but someone's going to have to. I think this is where Cartagia is going to finally get fucking taken out on the Narn homeworld. Prediction number 2, losing both Kosh and Koshbag. I honestly think that this is where the Vorlons are going to turn their eyes on the Babylon 5 and maybe try to have some kind of major attack upon the station. And then I only have one question. What's going on in Earth these days? We really haven't seen anything from Earth or EarthGov or, anything really going on with what's going on down on Earth these days. So are we going to see anything happen from Earth or Mars or anything time soon? So
Justin, I'm actually happy you brought that up, because it was either last week or the week before in Beyond the Rim, we just said, the newbies have completely kind of ignored the Earth thing, and the show has kind of ignored the Earth thing. We did get a throwaway line from Garibaldi this episode saying, "I can't go home." So, but really, the whole Earth storyline has been sidelined. So,
yeah, what's going on with Clark these days? I want to know.
Well, we'll answer that for you in the next year and a half.
Beyond the Rim.
A reminder before the newbies leave, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and also leave a review where you can, especially if you can over at iTunes, Apple. That really does help us grow. And we'll be here next week to talk about The Long Night. Until then, I'm Scott, and with me has been
Emily,
Justin,
Evan,
Mike,
and Nicole.
Newbies, be gone.
Goodbye.
Not leaving.
Thank you for listening to Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast at anchor.fm/Grey17podcast or youtube.com @Grey17podcast. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Patreon. be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Gray 17 is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim,
And beyond that?
the truth.
Welcome back to Beyond the Rim. Again, this is our spoiler section, so if you have not watched past the current episode, or if you can't remember what happens next, be sure to leave now and then come back next week. If you're okay with spoilers, stick around. We'll answer all these questions and predictions from our newbies. So, guys, we're just going to dive right in here. And most of the questions revolved around either the Vorlons or Garibaldi. So let's do the Vorlons first. Our first question is, are there factions within the Vorlon?
I don't think we get really a definitive answer to this other than the fact that Kosh 1.0 definitely feels differently than some of his Vorlon colleagues, most notably Kosh 2.0. But other than that, I'm not aware of anything in the expanded universe where we hear too much more about that. Are you guys?
I think this
No,
is
as far as I know, the Vorlons are kind of the Vorlons, except Kosh 1.0 stayed a little while too long and went a little native.
Yeah. Logically, it makes sense that they're not all on the same page and that original Kosh wasn't the only outside thinker. But yeah, nothing ever confirmed.
I cannot imagine Kosh 1.0 being okay with them blowing up planets, but it's pretty clear that the rest of the Vorlons feel completely differently than he does.
Oh, it's interesting to me that, I feel like a lot of personification gets applied to OG Kosh because, he is obviously a warmer character than his placement, but you got to remember how much of a dick he still was in the beginning too. He was very much towing the Vorlon line of I could care less whether the Narns and the Centauri kill each other,
Yeah, that's true, but
you're and I just say that because you're not the only one that kind of just did it. Like everybody else is like, oh, Kosh 1.0 was like a father figure to me. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, don't worry, I'm also not forgiving Londo.
We were told to, and this goes into the other question we got from Emily, how many Vorlon are there? We're told throughout that there's not many left. So I think if you're going to have a faction, it's going to be one or two that kind of, as Blake said, go native. And even though their fleet is huge, we've been told over and over again that their ships are bioships, living ships. So there's probably still not that many Vorlon out there that could, quote unquote, go native. And also, after millennia of doing the same thing over and over again, you're kind of set in your ways. They know there's a cycle. They're going to beat up on the shadows through the littler races. Some of those races will succeed and live on like the Minbari did 1,000 years ago. Some will not, and that's cool. That's how we work this thing. Moving over to Garibaldi. Was Garibaldi wrapped on the table when they found him? Oh.
Yeah, I guess I mentioned that before because I actually thought there was an answer to this. I thought when they showed them wheeling him off across the dock that he was still on the original table wrapped in cellophane, but I guess I could just be misremembering that. I don't know if it's us that have talked about this or not, but I've had discussions recently with a few people about, like what childhood like horror movies or whatever had an effect on you growing up. And like the one and only movie for me that stands out as like something that I watched and it stuck in my craw like for years was Fire in the Sky, the alien abduction movie where the guy was like famously on the table wrapped in the whatever, and I get flashes of that every time I see the Garibaldi thing in here. I'm sure that's not a coincidence given the timing, but
no, I wouldn't doubt it. That movie was a creepy ass movie though. So right? I just pulled up the episode. And we literally, at commercial break, we have Garibaldi waking up in the cellophane on the ship. And then when we cut back from commercial, he is being wheeled into medbay on a gurney, but he has a blanket and a mask over his mouth for air. So you have no idea how he got taken out of the ship, but he's not conscious when they bring him in.
So they probably just unwrapped him to take him off the ship.
It looks like.
Which you would think would be a red flag
Yeah, you would think.
And maybe it was. Maybe that's part of why they're treating him so cautiously. If anything, the thing that's inconsistent is how trusting and accepting absolutely everybody was of Sheridan.
That's true.
The newbies were 100% right on with that.
Yeah. What I really like about Jerry Doyle's portrayal of Garibaldi in this season is that he made a concerted effort to play him so that it felt natural, so that it wasn't a big ass billboard on him saying, "Hey, I've been altered. I've been brainwashed." And I think it comes off very well in the season. It's a tough season to watch if you're somebody who likes Garibaldi, but he pulls off the acting very well, in my opinion.
I think we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago with this too about Garibaldi coming back, and it was this idea that through several of these episodes until Garibaldi ultimately betrays Sheridan, you can kind of see where he's having an issue and you can sympathize with the issue he's having. So it's really hard to determine, is this a Garibaldi that's been altered, or is this a Garibaldi that, came back? And I think you even pointed out this almost messianic version of Sheridan. Is Garibaldi right or not as he's coming back into Babylon 5 and dealing with this? And I think as viewers, we're left to have that hanging with us too. Has he been modified? Or is this really Garibaldi? Where's the programming start and stop?
Yeah, I got to really credit the writing too, because not only is the betrayal good, but the way in which it's written on the fence so well. When you're watching the season, it's really hard to tell one way or the other.
So moving on, the other question we had was, what's going on with Earth these days?
Oh, that's a coming.
Well, it gets answered too. Like when Franklin and Marcus go to Mars, they find out that no one on Earth was even told about the Shadow War. They heard rumors and stuff, but the Clark administration is like, oh, that's nothing. Don't worry about that. So I think it was Marcus's line when we get there. He's like, I'm a galactic hero and no one knows. Just my luck. But yeah, we'll get there in a few episodes. Moving on into predictions, after both Koshas or Koshai have died, the Vorlons will turn their eyes to the station. If they were going to be around for more than 2 episodes, they probably would have.
Yeah, they don't get the opportunity.
Yeah, no, they're going to go for Centauri Prime, and they're going to get stopped, and that's going to be the end of it.
Sheridan's going to tell them to get the hell out of our galaxy.
Yes. I wonder if that will be a mean enough voice for Emily to like him. We'll see.
Of all things, I don't like him because he's too damn nice.
One person, I can't remember where I saw this or read it, but to that kind of point, I've said too that in this watch through, Sheridan hasn't really lived up to what I remember him living up to. One of the things with the Delenn and Sheridan dynamic is it seems like they have better chemistry together when they're not in the same scene together. What I mean by that, when they're like looking towards each other, longing towards each other, they have really good chemistry. But when you stick them together, there's not much there. Like this episode with them getting engaged, or at least trying to get engaged, it was just like, there's not much chemistry between these two. I don't know what it is. It doesn't, I'm not going to ship them like Nicole does. I don't know.
Yeah. Part of it, I think, is the writing, because JMS is writing the scenes to be kind of slightly awkward, and that's why I personally think they feel more natural that way. I'm not the smoothest guy there ever was, so that's why I just think that came off pretty well in the engagement scene. What really struck me though was the first scene with the two of them, where they embrace. She almost looks like a wounded cat nuzzling. It's really strange. And I watched it a couple of times because I was like, am I just seeing this wrong? But it looks very odd. And that's coming from someone who really does care very much for Mira Furlan's acting. But it struck me as very strange.
That was actually brought up in this episode too with JMS on when he was chatting with folks. And he said Delenn's been dealing with depression, and obviously I think he said the fire and steel in her will be coming out more. And we do see that, especially when we get to the Earth Civil War. But yeah, that may be it for me. It may be that a lot of Delenn's agency is like just not there right now, and it's just kind of not working for me.
Yeah, I mean, in this episode, the scene that I actually thought was, for whatever reason, sort of off-putting was right before the engagement when she's kind of, I don't know what you want to call it. It wasn't like confession or anything, but when she was talking to Sheridan about, basically her feelings about, damn it, I'm struggling for the words here. Her role in keeping the secret about Anna away from Sheridan, and how that whole scene, she's looking away from him. And I kind of get what they were going for with it being like a shame thing, maybe. Like she's feeling ashamed about how she handled that situation, and now he's back and she's trying to face up to it. But you take that scene compared to when she sat down with Jakar and did kind of the same thing, and this one felt absolutely flat.
Yes, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and that was right before the weird nuzzling too. So
yeah. These two are much stronger characters. They're not in relationship mode, and it's weird. I think, and Kevin, you've now read JMS's autobiography. We learn, and he learns throughout his life, that he's not exactly a romantic person for many reasons. Yeah. So it's not his cup of tea to write romantic relationships. So that's probably part of it too. And
this could be a whole separate discussion, but we all have issues with how other things are written, other sci-fi, and if JMS's only aspect of his writing that's a little soft is his romantic stuff, I think he's a pretty well-rounded writer, because there are other sci-fi writers who are going to remain nameless, who get dialogue and other things in all aspects of their writing, not always very, very good, but JMS usually does pretty well with everything else.
Agreed. So moving right along, Garibaldi will start investigating Lorien, and the tension between Garibaldi and the crew is going to get ugly.
Yep.
I would say so, because at one point Ivanova says shoot him on sight.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a tension, yeah. I think the Lorien aspect, again, because we're only 2 episodes away from Lorien also going beyond the rim and never coming back, that's going to be kind of a moot point. But for the better part of the rest of the season, Garibaldi is going to be a problem. He's going to quit security and still be a problem on the station until we have to deal with all of that situation. So yeah, it's going to get more ugly.
Before the fans come for you, Lorien does come back at the very end of Sleeping in the Light.
Okay, fine, sure.
Someone would call you on it.
Excuse me, but in episode 522, or actually 422, okay.
I'm betting we can name which one it would be too.
Hi. We know who you are. Yeah, but so, Lorien's not going to be a factor much anymore, but yeah, it's going to get ugly. And as we discussed, I think a couple episodes ago, or maybe even last week, I think that's a point where some of us are going to like it and some of us are not going to like it. I'm interested to see how the newbies take the kind of drawn out aspect of this storyline throughout most of season 4. Last one, Cartagia will die on Narn.
No shit, Nostradamus.
Nostradamus.
I do like the bait and switch aspect of it, though. Londo has this entire plan. Yep. He has it ready to go, and it falls apart dramatically, but it still works out in the end. And I really can't wait to see what the newbies have to say about the fact that it is good old Veer who shoves the needle into Cartagia's chest in 1 episode. I'm looking forward to that. Well, we'll go ahead and end it there. Thanks again so much for joining us on this conversation. And please, if you haven't already, and I know 50% of you don't do this, so please do hit that like, subscribe button. If you're listening to the podcast, be sure to follow our podcast on whatever your app of choice is, and leave us a comment and review. We can take Audible, we can take Spotify, and we can take Apple being the big dog in the room. So if you can help us out there, we really do appreciate it. And we'll be back here next week to discuss The Long Night and Veer committing assassination. It's gonna be great. It's fun. It's exciting. So until next week, I'm Scott, and with me has been
Kevin,
Blake,
and Mike.
See everybody. Likey, clicky, clicky.
Is that like Emperor side?
Yeah, what is that called?
Deicide?
Regicide.
Regicide.
Okay.
Veer commits regicide, yes.
Londo? Probably calling collect.